afternoon, everyone. I'm Dana Bradley, the Dean of the Erickson School of Aging Studies here at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you, both here in the room and virtually, to the first inaugural Financial Gerontology lecture. We are recording, so I've got some housekeeping, and I'm going to do this. It's going to be truth in advertising here. We are recording today's lecture so that, ask those attending via Zoom to mute your speakers. At the end of the presentation, there will be time for questions, which you can pose throughout the chat feature. So, Professor and me now is telling everyone, please go we'll keep running track of the questions as we go through the presentations. We're honored to build upon the foundation of knowledge created by the American Institute of Financial Gerontology and continue its legacy of work. Now, more than ever, we are challenged by opportunities in the business sector, in the business of aging, driven by today's global economic longevity. Truly, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And for those of you virtually attending, I will tell you, I am not a tall person, so I take every opportunity to honor, acknowledge, and stand upon any giant in the room, and we have several here that are attending. Dr. Neil Cutler, co-founder and president emeritus of the American Institute of Financial Gerontology and an esteemed gerontologist himself, is here in the audience. Neil, your gift and support, and your personal support of me as dean, in creating an exciting new chapter at the Erickson School of Aging Studies it means more than any possible words I could share with the audience. But we really are preparing, based on your gift, to navigate and identify and support the next generation of leaders in the longevity economy.
I was inspired when I was thinking about what to talk about by an exhibit from the British Museum, A History of the World in 100 Objects. And that's really the book that I had for this. You can see it's been a little bit well worn. And the original History of the World in 100 Objects covered, as it notes, 1.5 million years of human ingenuity. And I will be covering about 25 to 30 years of financial ingenuity instead. What happened when that came out was that there was a flood of everyone looking at something in 10 objects or 100 objects, or in the case of the Smithsonian, they had to outdo everybody, of course, was 1,000 objects, or a short history world in 10 lies, or 100 words, or women, World War II, football, you name it. We had these lists of all these objects, and they were specific objects, in fact. And the reason that I have objects in quotes when it comes to financial gerontology is that a lot of the objects are really concepts, or they're interactions, or they're emerging things. So it's a little bit more than 10 you're going to see, but the framework around it is these 10 objects or concepts that clear everything in. Everyone's aging. I know that, right? Every second that goes by, we're getting a little second older, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know why I just did that. I couldn't see your screen. Okay. The tech experts here are fixing something. Everybody knows about aging because we're doing it ourselves, but people probably know more about money than they know about gerontology. We have some funny stories about what people interpreted as gerontology, and a very quick introduction. So the quick introduction is that there is a history of old age. It's actually a book put out by Oxford University. It's not a new concept to be thinking about age. In fact, one of the favorite guys I like is Cicero. In 44 BC, he wrote a monograph, if you will, called De Senectute in Latin, which means on aging. And he parallels things from 2,000 years ago that I see happening today between generations, within generations. And so it's not a new concept that we're looking at here. It's been around and probably even before him, I'm sure. And it kind of emerged later on in the ages, the life and age of man and woman thank God, at least back in the 1800s, they were including that to a certain extent. And that was the way, for infancy to the brink of the grave, stages of a man's life from cradle to the grave. And that was the concept of aging. A very quick introduction to those of you who don't know much about gerontology is in the course of, can we make this go forward? Technology again. Let this be a warning to all of you. There we go. Great. The 1-minute gerontologist. My best time on this is 57.7 seconds. I'll see if we can keep it within that range. So this, the lifespan is from birth to earth, sperm to worm, start to finish, womb to tomb. And that can be divided in certain subsidiary ways. You have the grow years up in the beginning, grow years, the ho-ho years, and the oh-no years. The oh-no years start around our day, which is a retirement time, which in the United States is about age 62 or 63. And you get into the other parts, okay, which are the go-go years, the slow-go years, the no-go years, and the no-mo years. You have the 0-ish to 25-ish to 50-ish, 75, 85-ish, okay, which can be further subdivided into the under years, the wonder years, the thunder years, the asunder years, the funder years, the blunder years, the plunder years, and the go under years. And that's gerontology in a minute or so. So now you're all up to speed, as any good gerontologist would be, about this particular topic area. There's a more modern interpretation of that, lifespan stuff from kind of, modern, mid-century modern kind of a framework, where instead of winding up in the grave, you wind up in Florida under a palm tree. So, so things have progressed a little bit when we're looking at this process. Money and gerontology, that's what we're talking about. Money isn't everything. Great song I love by Cyndi Lauper. So this is Coco Chanel, right? She wasn't talking about money and aging. She was talking about you can be gorgeous at 30, charming at 40, irresistible for the rest of your life, okay? So she had this 3-stage kind of thing. Never went beyond 40, if you could see that, right? You can recognize that. Another anonymous, I don't know who this person was, but I saw it on a little poster in a grocery store somewhere. As I've grown older, I've learned that pleasing everyone is impossible, but being everyone off is a piece of cake. Okay, so again, you have this attitudinal framework around aging, which has nothing to do with the progress of your body or anything else. It's just like how you're kind of feeling about it. And this individuation process includes attitude about money and aging and what we call the Morso syndrome. And we often hear complaints about old, crabby old people. Well, what they found in the research is that crabby old people turned out to be just more of the crabby young people they used to be. So you become more so as you get older because you have, you really don't care that much about what people are thinking about. You just kind of go with the flow of who you are. So the Morso syndrome is actually I'm undergoing the Morso syndrome to the absolute discouragement of my wife and family. However, everybody's going to be hearing that. So if you're a good, happy person now, you'll probably be more so. If you're not, if you don't want to be when you get older, you better start working on it. So money and gerontology. So this is it. For all you money folks out there, and even you gerontologists, you can see what happens here. Age of head of family, median net worth and average net worth, less than 35 years old, 35 to 44, 45, 54, 55, 64, 65, 74, 75 plus, and look at what we have. Right? The older you are in this population, the higher median net worth you have, and certainly higher average net worth. And both of those are important because averages are really subject to very, very, very rich people and very, very, very poor people. The median really says 50% of people have more than that, 50% of that population have less than that. But and it's not unusual. Why? I mean, people have worked longer, they've gotten more benefits, they've been able to save more, et cetera, over that period of time. So this is not something that, oh my God, everybody like this. When these 35-year-olds get down to those ages, they're probably going to be in the same kind of a framework. Sorry. Not doing what I wanted. Aging is unleashing exponential growth in every industry. Business that target economic power of the 50+ age group will see big gains. The ARP 2021. Everybody else is in it as well. You have the initial introduction of financial gerontology to financial services people through an article written by Davis Gregg, who was the president of the American College of Financial Services at the time, talking about financial gerontology, kind of introducing financial gerontology. And this was in 1990. Again, we're not talking about something that's just emerging now. You have AARP building talking about super agers, people living longer. We're going to get into more of that. And the Journal of Financial Service Professionals. One department of which is on financial gerontology has been producing columns on financial gerontology for financial services professionals for decades. The original author of those columns, Neil Cutler, did it for 25 years himself. And there are over 200 columns available. So let's talk about gerontology. We talked about finances a little bit. Let's talk about gerontology. Scientific study and practical application of knowledge concerning the processes of aging. And the emphasis on processes of aging is that everybody thinks gerontology is only about old people, and it's not. It's about the process. The concept is process is central to the inquiry. The concern is not with old people per se, or even metabolism advanced age, but with the dynamic lifelong process of human development. So you're starting into gerontology from the moment of you being born in that aging process. And we'll see how that kind of connects over time and through generations. Again, this is a quote from Neil Cutler in 1990 that we're talking about. Now, financial gerontology. Multidisciplinary field of study encompassing both academic and professional education that integrates, and I added this stuff in quotes, and applies. That's one of the important things that it now does. Research on aging and human development with the concerns and also needs and objectives of finance and business. These are integral to each other. The businesses of today have the aging of the population worldwide to deal with. As an opportunity, as a challenge, as an opportunity, really, for them. Financial gerontology. We started out with the lifespan, right? That's the birth to death, et cetera, but was added to that internally to the lifespan. One of the first ones was the health span by two researchers, Rowe and Kahn, and the wealth span, Davis Gregg again, right? Financial services. And the wealth span has kind of taken hold as a way of looking at what needs to happen within the lifespan. And the health span and lifespan are very, very integrated, as we'll see in a little bit. Financial translation, accumulation evolves into decumulation. I was director of research in gerontology at MetLife Mature Market Institute. And I have to say that the insurance industry, at least that part of it, was extremely interested in decumulation issues while I was there. That was the buzzword. So the accumulation side, because they're saying, well, a lot of people have already accumulated, let's see what we're going to do with it. And part of the reason for that is this right here. Around 2034, the number of projected percentage of the population of adults 65 will surpass children under 18. There'll be more old people than younger people under age 18. And that's, you guys can do the math, right? 5-6 years away. And it's going to continue through 2060 with these projections. The aging algorithm is another part of what we look at when we look at gerontology. So people talk about chronological age, physical or biological age, mental age, and perceived age. And all of those are integral into what happens with a customer, with a client, with a financial services professional, with the industry in general. Time has passed since birth, physical, ability and functioning, cellular aging based on genetics, lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera. There are all sorts of other things besides age which go into that. mental ability to think compared to the average person's ability at the same age, more or less, and perceive the appearance of aging to others and self. The big takeaway from all this stuff about the research shows is that chronological age does not equal biological age. When I go talk to my doc and I say, this hurts, and I say, well, like when does that show up? According to him, my knees are I'm about 75 years old. I just turned 75. My knees are somewhere in the 80s. My left shoulder is probably around late 80s, and not because I'm old, it's because I busted it up playing rugby when I was in college. So, the different parts of you, and mentally, most people say, I think I'm around 25 or 30 maybe, So all this stuff kind of integrates with what's going on here. Financial gerontology's 4 lenses: individual aging, family aging, generational aging, and population aging are the things that are embedded in how financial gerontology looks at some of this activity. So individual, what's the longest humans can live? 115 years, new study says, according to the New York Times just a couple of weeks ago. Or maybe not, because we have Marie Calmont, who died in 1997 at the age of 122. According to her caregivers, she smoked and drank until 2 years before her death. She was down to 1 glass of wine and 1 cigarette a day on doctor's orders. Who would have thunk it? Right now, we have 2. John Tinniswood, 112 years old. Tomiko Ituka, 116 years old, currently the oldest recorded live person who's around. We will notice here something that we're going to see a lot of as this goes on. Who's outliving who here, right? Women outlive men. Depending on where you are and your education, all that other stuff, it could be anywhere from 4 to 8 years or more. Families. Family is what I call the financial gerontology F words. There's nothing to worry about with these words. Financial issues are family issues. And that leads to the emergence of the senior sandwich generation, which was introduced by Neil and Jan Wassel, Neil Cutler and Jan Wassel, in a column that they wrote. Because the demographics are changing when we look back at those ages 35 and et cetera, and the money and all that stuff. This is what happens. Now, this is an ad, a full-page ad in the New York Times, actually, from Ameriprise Financial, Money Across Generations, an Ameriprise Financial Study of Family Conversations, sorry. And they got it. This was done 10 years ago, 12 years ago, okay? So they were beginning at that time to understand, family. There's going to be things going on there from a financial services company, insurance company. Generations and cohorts. So the thing that got me about generations and cohorts is, like, I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1949. And then you had all these other cohorts and generations. Okay, so the baby boomer generation is 18 years along, right? 18 years spread. Others are more or less. Like, what's the generation? If it's not all the same, 18 years. And then what happens if you have someone, the baby boomer, who's born I was born, January 1st, 1946, and the last one was born at, 11:59 in 1964. Are they like the same generation? Really? Or are they going to be more like the person born the day before who's in another generation, or the day after who's in another generation? So we have to be really particular about how we get to understand this. So it's the understanding and translation which is important within financial services. The cohort which will be old by the year 2000, which Neil wrote in 1976. Okay, so we're not talking about, this is brand new. 1976, we were looking at this. He was, at least. Substantially different from contemporary older persons. The kind of people that they are, the kind of education, skills, orientations they might have as a consequence of having higher level of education and other stuff. This was in the Andrews Gerontology Center paper that he wrote in 1976. Subjective age, self-identified age, the young old, the young, the old, the middle, differences in social, economic, et cetera, make a difference in terms of how they are biologically, mentally, et cetera, and economically. There was a piece I just saw on the TV show the other day about, actually it was in a presentation yesterday here at UMBC about the value of education in terms of lifetime income. Big difference. 60 is the new what? Fill in the blank. Usually it's 60 is the new 50, 70 is the new 60, 60 is the new 40. You know, it's hard to tell. Middle age, typically 45 to 64 years old. Young old, 55 to 74. The third quarter of life, 50 to 75. The third age, old, 75 years plus, maybe 85 years. This oldest old, 100 years plus. How many of you here in the audience, or perhaps virtually, how many of you had a parent and or grandparent who lived at least to age 80? Okay, we got a bunch. Age 90. A couple, 100? 3 of us, right? At least. So it's not this phenomena. And if you've had a parent or a grandparent that's lived to 100, you have stories to tell, believe me. So we're redefining chronological age with these claims that, 60 is the new 50 and 70 is the new 60, et cetera, et cetera. The subject of social, behavioral, economic factors leads to what has been called by Neil Cutler again, the democratization of the need for financial services, resulting from the increasing life expectancy and the demographics. So the demographics are driving the business. They're driving the industry because of things like this. And it's spreading out. This democratization means there's more people in more of these age ranges and more money floating around that need the help of financial services professionals, which is why we focus on educating financial service professionals about how to interact with what's going on in the world around them. So this is another kind of illustration. US centenarians projected to quadruple in number by 2054. Now that's a little ways down the road, okay? But if you're young now as a financial service professionals, that's not so far away, is it? It's 30 years. It's probably within the framework of your career that you are going to be dealing with centenarians or the families of centenarians, much more so than you are today if you're in it. So you need to be looking at how that's going to happen and what you need to do and learn going down 30 years down the road. Because this is happening. This is not like, oh yeah, maybe. Population leads to generations. You go from this on the left, the population pyramid, and you can see a century of change. 1960, you got this like little curvy thing, right? Here's the baby boom, right? 1960. Most of them were born by then. 1964 was the last. 2060, this is starting to look like a block here. So you're going to see dramatic change because of what these earlier generations have created decades in the future. And one of the things, again, that I was able to do at the MetLife Mature Market Institute is talk about the fact that you couldn't look at boomers, okay? So we were producing information for the general public. We were a center of excellence, thought leadership, but we were also working in the agency side of an insurance company, large insurance company. And so we were there to educate the people who were within that company and others outside, obviously, with what was going on to understand it better. So we had older boomers, middle boomers, and younger boomers. We had that 18 years sliced into 3 6-year segments to better understand how to deal with the various parts of who you were having as a client, as a prospect, as an organization, as an actuary. I love this one. People think demographics is like the charts and the graphs, and this is demographics. Okay, this is actually from Australia. I couldn't find a good US one, but it's the same kind of process here in the US, okay? And it's like, like where does the strand go that you have to follow along over time? This is from about 1980 to about 2012, 2014. So 4, 50 to 24, 25 to 54, 55 to 64, 65 and over. Even those 4 cohort groups are enough to be able to start making sense, but you've got to know what's happening as time goes on with all of them. The reason being is that it allows you to then not only plan, you can do strategic planning with this. You can do a better job of understanding who your clients are right now, or who your potential clients are, and how to get to them and how to do a better job. I love the begats, like it's in the Bible, and so-and-so begat so-and-so and so-and-so begat so-and-so. We have that. This is like the Bible version of financial gerontology. So you have to look at who begat who here, okay? Because there's influences both from the parental side and from the begotten side, right? So the greatest generation in silence begat boomers, okay? Why do they call them the great GI generation, greatest generation? World War II, right? They were the generation that basically was World War II. Silence, why do they call them the silent? What's a silent generation? They call them the silent generation because they never had a sitting president in that age group, okay? So they were politically silent, not having that kind of representation. And then late silence and early boomers begat Gen X. Then you have mid-late boomers and early Gen begat millennials or Gen Y. What's that about? Why did the first name for the millennials was Gen Y? Well, somebody couldn't come up with something clever. So now they ran out of, I guess a good thing we have a 26-letter alphabet. I don't know where they're going because they started at the end. Gen X, early millennials begat Gen Z, late millennials began Gen Alpha. Now we're going into the Greek, okay? So these generations will then create other generations, as we saw on the previous slide with the pyramid. This all kind of rolls over as time goes on. Neil's creation of what I call a financial gerontology premise, aging of the population and social policy. Okay, he was a social gerontologist, but even in '76, key concept in financial gerontology: the relationship of the nature of the aging population to issues of social policy, which include characteristics of that population, the size of that population, the relationship, the composition of it between young and old, relevant social, economic, demographic, and political factors. And in fact, they weren't that far off in their projection back then of how many people in this age group, right? The old 65, they have to go old as 65 plus here, in terms of how many people in the population would be that age. We had the founders then of financial gerontology. And the thing to note here is financial gerontology wasn't created, it wasn't named, it wasn't a product of academic gerontology. It was a product of financial services. Joseph Bettner, CLU, president of the Philadelphia Life Insurance Company, and huge, huge philanthropist within financial services. And Dr. Davis Gregg, president of the American College of Financial Services, create the Bettner Research Institute, BRI, in 1986. And the Bettner Research Institute, if you go back and look, we'll have some illustration of that a little bit. Go back and look at what their mission was, what their vision was. It was about financial services and aging. They got it back then. Neil Cutler was brought in as director in 1889, establishment of the Bettner Institute of Financial Gerontology, right? There we go, 1990. First industry academic consortium combining social gerontology and financial planning and financial services. They were the first brick, okay? They were the foundation in this. Not that there weren't other people talking about elements of it, but they were not doing it in this way. The American College then had the financial gerontology. Then it went to University of Pennsylvania School of Arts and Sciences, the Bettner Center for Financial Gerontology, then the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School, then the Bettner Center for Pensions and Retirement Research, then Widener University, University of North Carolina, Greensboro. I mean, it's been all over the place with these top-notch, illustrious universities. That's where the faculty came from. That's where the instrumental thought about this stuff came from. and began introducing financial gerontology to financial services. Okay, part of it was through papers and presentations that both Neil and Davis Gregg did nationally and internationally. They were in Paris, they were in Japan. The journal, Bettner Research Institute, papers and publications, including lectures, annual lectures from these organizations, from the top professionals in the field, and obviously the Journal of Financial Service Professionals and the Financial Gerontology column in that publication. All of this is focused on financial services professionals, right? You're talking about CLU, CHFC, American Society of CLU and CHFC, the Journal, and we'll talk more about the evolution of that information as well. Next is Matilda White Riley, who gave a lecture in 1990, the Bettner Lecture. And she established in that lecture the value in understanding insights, tools, and solutions. So let me emphasize, insights, tools, and solutions for financial services professionals and organizations and the demographics that was out there. Okay, it was really kind of a brilliant paper, lecture that she gave on this. And was, really starting to make the tie-in as social gerontology got more progressive and more instrumental, as well as financial services. The financial gerontology directly connects to financial advisors in a number of different ways. 1996, the Encyclopedia of Financial Gerontology by Lois Witt and Jerk Siegelhaler, and a revision of that to the Encyclopedia of Retirement and Finance in 2003. As a 2-volume, by the way. And also Neil's book in 2002, Advising Mature Clients, The New Science of Wealth Span Planning, okay? Which really focuses in on this whole wealth span concept and calls it the new science because there's now research, there's now information out there for the first time that can be used by financial professionals to make things happen and do a better job. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Another piece of this is a column that Dr. Sandra Timmerman, who was a vice president at MetLife and a director of the Mature Market Institute, also an educator and social gerontologist, and a columnist, a longtime columnist for the journal in the Financial Gerontology column. And she notes 2 things. One is the financial services moves towards holistic retirement planning. This is 2018. The reason I bring that up is because I'm reading information now from financial associations, and they're starting to talk about financial service professionals do more than simply give financial advice, that they need to have a team, that it's this holistic approach to your clients and holistic approach to their needs and holistic approach to the organization that really makes a difference. Some financial professionals believe their role is to focus on finance and leave their aging-related topics to other professionals, right? I know, somebody down the street knows more about that than I do, I hope you enjoy it. Financial professional who involves themselves with non-financial issues like those described in this column will develop stronger relationships with their clients and are better equipped to help them as they navigate the aging continuum. That's both from the client side and the advisor side. We'll see more about that as well in a bit. Next, Object, the American Institute of Financial Gerontology, incorporated in 2002. Who were the initial people involved? First executive board. James Valentino was a senior VP of corporate marketing at MetLife. Wallace Baker, again from MetLife. Number 1 agency, Howard Passman, Neil, myself, Margaret Hottinger, Jan Wassel. We had core courses, 4 core courses covering the topics here, and then 4 electives, which would lead to a designation as a financial service, RFG, Registered Financial Gerontologist. Originally, it was a program we started at American Society on Aging, open and tailored programs, general audience. We also did some corporate programs sponsored by individual corporations. About 300 people, RFGs, are out there right now, completing the full curriculum and about 50 people with the Foundations of Financial Gerontology, which is a smaller, shorter program. Faculty, we had what I call best of breed faculty in this organization, okay? Elder law attorneys, social workers, financial planners, accountants, insurance specialists, social service administrators, university faculty, lots of PhDs, CFPs, CLUs, okay? Because that was the integration of both these concepts together. If you note here, we were originally a certified financial gerontologist. We had CFG. The people that gave the CFP didn't like that so much. So we had a discussion with them and decided that it would be in both our interests to have a somewhat different designation, which became the registered financial gerontologist. So we had, and then that led to too much what I call a combination of Jimmy Durante and Willie Sutton. Jimmy Durante's famous quote is, "Everybody wants to get into the act." And Willie Sutton's famous quote of why he was robbing banks was that where the money was. And so there were a bunch of people out there who really recognized that they all want to get into the act because that's where the money was. But without the credentialing and without the ethical supervision, let's say, that was required by us at the AIFG. And that led to some congressional hearings because of this abuse of clients, et cetera, and then certification. The certification business in this basically went awry for many years because the corporation said, all right, forget it. Nobody gets these designations. We don't know who to trust and who not. But we were the only one that would continue to be a university affiliated program 100%. Next, financial gerontology and the longevity economy intersection. Boom. Okay. The stuff that Neil and a lot of other financial gerontologists were talking about 20 years ago in the 90s is now happening. Who would have thunk it? Right? And one of the things that they're talking about now very much is this longevity economy. There are actually investment portfolios that focus on the longevity economy. And the one thing I want to note here is this book from the World Economic Forum, Longevity Economy Principles, Foundations for a Financially Resilient Future. So they have a set of 6 principles. I would advise everyone to go take a look at these and get familiar with these 6 principles about what makes good financial sense for companies, how to approach the issues through these principles. Financial gerontology anticipated the economic. This is the longevity economy. This is it. $158.4 trillion. The T with a T. Okay. That's going to flow through these generations. Okay. Individuals, families, and generations. Okay. And starting out with the baby boomers who have the most right now, because they inherited a lot from their parents, right, during the boom times. The handoff of this financial legacy is going to be sequential, but not equal. Okay. If you look at the dynamics of this, obviously, rich people leave more money to their kids and et cetera, down the line than people who don't have that much. So it's not all going to happen in the same way. But take a look at what's going to happen with the millennials from 2000 around now to 2045. They're going to be inheriting, because they are the children primarily of the baby boomers, all that money. We're talking about billions and trillions in every component, okay? Philanthropy, work, labor income, charitable donations, consumer spending. I mean, it's everywhere. So you really have to understand where all this is going to be happening and how it's going to affect your business and your clients. We went international. Programs gained attention and expand Korea, Japan, China, and the EU. There was an Israeli Institute of Financial Gerontology. I delivered some lectures that included issues about baby boomers in the United States and research that we did in conjunction with Oxford University and Seoul National University in Korea on their baby boomers. Same kinds of things happening, a little bit different timing, and a little bit different in the sequence. But this continues today. There was a Korean Institute of Financial Gerontology created by a financial expert there who came to the United States and got his registered financial gerontology degree. There was a long-term negotiation with people from China. And Neil Cutler revealed to me how he muscled the Chinese components of this negotiation to actually do what they said that they were going to do, and if they didn't, the deal was off. So it's really it's really a pushback issue that you can obviously accomplish. We're now here, right? University of Maryland, BC, and ESAS. So Neil and Jan, Neil Cutler and Jan Watson were connected to the university way back and started having discussions once the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, decided they wanted to go into health issues rather than financial issues. And so we're at the kind of the end part, the beginning of the end, if you will, or the beginning of the new beginning of the activity of financial gerontology right now, with the establishment of the Erickson School of Aging Services and the introduction of an Institute of Financial Gerontology here at UMBC. The future, okay, technology. It's going to be technology, AI, right? This is a presentation that I saw at the Defined Contribution Association meeting a couple of years ago, and they're talking about AI and using AI to help define who your clients are and who your information should go to and how it should go. On the other end of it, a recent Forbes survey said 75% of consumers are concerned about misinformation coming from artificial intelligence. So, I mean, we're going to see that. It's here now. It's going to continue. It's really important, though, because of this in particular, that trust be established and credibility and structure be established for the use of AI for financial services. Because the other end of this is I'm also involved in some other activities, and there is a very large and concerning increase in financial scams and related kinds of things for older adults using AI as a basis. So people are really watching it, and reasonably so. This is a great part of the increase in financial gerontology. The merger of 2024, earlier this year, of the Society of Financial Services Professionals, which was a professional association and produced the journal and had the financial gerontology column, and National Institute, right, National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, and Life Happens, expands financial gerontology, boom, okay? It's now reaching 23,000 financial professionals through the journal alone, and other educational activities that are going to be ongoing now. Wonderful opportunity. This is a great opportunity for everybody in those organizations and other associations and financial professionals from everywhere to join in and get access to these resources and this information and insights and tools. And this is going to continue. We're just starting here. And what we call gerontechnology is the other part of it. In all of these areas, mobility, transportation, finance, family, cognition, purpose, and some prediction again in a two-part series for the column that I did, going back with Neil Cutler, back to the beginning, and where is it going to go in the future? Age Tech Revolution, great book, has a lot of information about where that's going from the gerontological side. So that might be good for financial professionals to get aware of as well. And finally, bonus, I promise you 10 objects. You've got 11. Say thank you. Wonderful, thank you, okay. You, everybody in this audience here and looking via Zoom, okay? The Institute of Financial Gerontology, UMBC, ESAS, NAFA, FSSP, Life Happens, Financial Service Professionals, getting involved in this portion of what's going on as the future goes. It's just the start. It's a really wonderful beginning to all this. And I'll offer you all one challenge. We call it financial gerontology. It comes out as like FinGero. It's not like BFI or FILIT, it's like we need something like a little clippier. So I'm offering a challenge to all of you out there. So before we get into, like, what are we going to call it? GFI, GERFI, Figer, Finger? Finger on, not what, what do we, let's have something that sounds a little bit better than finger, you know. Um, for those of you here, there's some index cards on the table. Please write in your particular issue about that. For those of you on the Zoom call, please put it in your chat room and let us know who you are. And if somebody wins a prize on this, we'll send you a prize, right, for a new winning definition or little specific for financial gerontology. So I want to thank all of you for looking at the history of financial gerontology and being part of its future. Thank you. Now, Dr. Kenn Tacchino, who will be our discussant. Kenn is an amazing professional, and although he didn't want me to mention this, I will. His ebook on financial services, I didn't understand 75% of it, which is probably really good. But the 25% I did remember, and I brought to my financial advisors and said, what are we going to do about this? So Kenn, welcome.
Good.
Okay.
You all set with the Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. It's wonderful to be here, John. Fantastic. And knowing and sort of having a front row seat to the history of what went on in financial gerontology. I'm thrilled to be part of this here today. I have my new friends here at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, my old friends from way back when we shared some time together, Neil Cutler and I at the Widener University and the American College. For those of you who don't know what a discussant is, at academic conferences, a discussant is somebody who says, okay, I see what you said. And for the first 2.5 minutes, they compliment it. And then they rip the soul out of the presenter for the rest of the time. That's basically what a discussant does. I'm going to ignore that because there's nothing to rip except maybe underselling how important this is. I mean, you made the case of where we were, but I think we also need to make the case of where we're going. Financial gerontology, or the ability to sort of frame yourself in a position to understand exactly what you can do for clients beyond dollars and cents, beyond the decision whether to use a Roth or not to use a Roth, or whether to do a rollover or not to do a rollover. There is so much more to that decision. What scares me is when I go to a doctor and they have their perspective on it, but they don't have this holistic perspective that financial gerontology can give you. They give you advice and not sort of getting to where you want to go. And so it's really essential that we get broad-based in how we approach this. And financial gerontology is all part of that. So for my remarks, and again, I'm going to comment on a couple of things you said, John. Just one, I had an interesting revelation once about this generational thing that you gerontologists talk about all the time. In 1969 was Woodstock. So my brother's 10 years older than I am. He was born in 1947. 46 to 64 is the baby boom generation. So he's going to Woodstock. I'm asking my parents if I can stay up late and watch the Brady Bunch. That's everything you need to know. Everything you need to know about generational, there's the difference between, you can't trust the one generation. I mean, you could probably divide any generation into 4 or 5 cohorts easily and go forward from there. So let me just talk about. I want to talk to our friends and people seeing this later as well about why a financial planner needs to get, why the teachings of gerontology need to be part of the financial planning process. So I'm going to make 3 or 4 major points here, and then we'll take questions from the audience. So I hope you're chatting in your questions, and that's very important. So first is defining what retirement means to the client helps the planner to assess retirement planning decisions. So my first point is, how the hell can you do retirement planning for somebody if you don't know what they think retirement is? If somebody is out there as one person, there are people out there who think retirement's a 30-year vacation. God love you for trying to financial plan for that, okay? There are people out there who retirement is caregiving. All you're going to do is servicing family members, servicing your spouse, whatever. Caregiving is financial planning. It's the retirement process. There are people out there who never want to retire. I wrote a column for Market Watch not too long ago, and I realized I was talking about myself, which is I'm not going to retire as long as I can keep going. Why not make this contribution? Why not be worthwhile as long as I can be worthwhile? I enjoy my students. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy most of what I do. Not all of it, but most of what I do. And the bottom line is, I think we need to define retirement for people. So the first avenue of understanding the aging process, understanding our clients, is understanding their mindset about retirement. What is the psychology of retirement? What does the client value? Are we restructuring life issues? Is it a leisure thing? Are we looking for purpose or looking for accomplishment? Certainly, we're looking for a organizing principle. Because before work, we had the organizing principle, before retirement, I should say, we had the organizing principle of I'm going to go to work and this is my day and this is how I'm structured. And this is the stuff I don't want to deal with. And this is the stuff I enjoy doing, et cetera, et cetera. Now retirement opens the door for creating a new organizing principle. Are your clients retiring to that new organizing principle? Are they retiring from work and don't have a clue what that new organizing principle will be? So you cannot plan retirement unless you look at that new organizing principle and how it's going to work. And what kills me is I did a lot of retirement planning seminars my day for different companies. And I do this thing and I go out there and I'd say, well, what are you thinking about this? And what are you thinking about that? And 90% of the time, I swear to God, 90% of the time, the husband and the wife were completely different pages. I saw this as this was a recipe for disaster. I probably caused more, marital spats at night by saying, okay, we're going to retire at the shore. Really? We're going to retire at the shore? No, we're going to, go live with my sister. Oh my goodness. So you're also dealing with family financial planning. John talked about the family dynamic of gerontology and how it's important. So the first issue that I wanted to raise was know thy client. Know what's going on for them. And that's where gerontology can really, really help you. Your background, your information. And I had the pleasure, John, I don't know if you remember this, of being at University of Pennsylvania when you guys were doing this. Oh my goodness, I learned this and I learned that and I learned this. And it's really important. It opened my eyes so much. You say the book opens your eyes to the financial plan. Well, it's really nice, and it's always nice to learn something new. So many times you go somewhere, you know what everybody's saying before they say it, and now with the financial gerontology, now you're opening up new doors for yourself. Planners need to create positive relationships. So my second point about why financial gerontology is sort of so important to the financial planning people in the audience. Why is it so important? You really need to know how to create positive relationships. At the very least, you need to know to avoid ageism. I can't tell you how many times in my recent history where I've thought, that's ageist. And why are they, asking me that, or why are they doing that? You need to relate to how people feel about aging. Aging is, yes, as a slow march to the grave, as John pointed out. By the way, that was just cruel. We don't want to think about that, John. But aging is also a lot of things to a lot of people. Again, knowing your audience. Understand that some clients have been victims of age discrimination. The MetLife Mature Market Institute, which John was associated with for many years, did a wonderful job of telling financial planners, when you do visual presentations, this is important. This is the contrast on the paper, the bigger font, the things that you and I wouldn't think about were things that this is how you're going to relate better to client. When you want to be an effective listener. You want to make sure that the client knows. You don't want to talk to the caregiver child. You want to talk to the client. You want to talk to them and give them the respect that they have and they deserve. Everything from your office environment and accessibility is very important. So, this is a very important part of this is planners need to create these positive relationships. Going for older planners is the baby boomers famously came up with don't trust anybody over 30. Now I think we're going to turn that sideways and say, don't trust anybody under 70. I think that's where we're going. I think the bottom line is, as you go forward, I feel bad. I'm teaching, 22-year-olds at Widener University to be financial planners. They need some more gray hair. I mean, they got to do something. You might see that the trend is going to change. They're going to be great and they're going to do amazing things. And I swear, but I'm worried. I don't know how to, somebody with all this wealth we talked about, when we talked about the upside down wealth pyramid of sort of the older people having all the money, I don't know they're going to trust that 22-year-old smiley faced person, although they're very capable. We want to recognize the overlap between financial planning and financial gerontology. So throughout the years, and I'm stealing everybody's ideas here that's in the room, throughout the years, we've had many, many brilliant columns saying, this is the intersection of financial planning and financial gerontology. Neil started it a long time ago. It was continued by John. It was continued by others. We've had articles on it and things of that nature. So we're really seeing the intersection. I mean, what could fill 10 volumes is what people don't know about Social Security. Yet financial planning is a lot about Social Security. I get upset that financial planners say, oh, I won't be here. Really? Are you kidding me? Come on. It's going to be here. Even if it's 85 cents on the dollar, that's still significant. And did you know that your average clients are going to get well over $1 million from Social Security? So when you discount it from the financial plan, that's a problem. What people don't know is where the interaction occurs is housing. We want to talk about the housing continuum and putting whether somebody's going from a single family home to a more adaptable age 55 community to a more adaptable continuing care retirement community or whatever. But what we as financial planners can learn from the gerontology world about the housing continuum and everything that goes on there, there's a great intersection there. There's intersections between widowhood and financial planning and understanding. I have a new columnist coming on, John. I don't know if you know this, but he's, in fact, his first column's coming in today. It's supposed to be coming in today, is the deadline for the next issue. And he deals with widows, period. That's what I do as a financial planner. He's a NAFA member, God love him. And this is, what a nice mission. What a nice way to wake up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror. I'm going to help widows overcome the loss of their spouse. And I'm going to straighten their financial records up for them and things of that nature. And it's a wonderful thing. We're going to look at spending patterns. This is spending and life, as Dave Gregg said at one point, this wealth span thing, it's huge. And we're going to look at that. And that's a giant intersection. That is maybe Main Street intersection, the wealth span between gerontology and financial planning. We're going to look at financial independence. I always thought, by the way, the insurance industry was brilliant. It's not life insurance. It's death insurance. Okay. You get it when you die. Somebody gets it when you die. You don't get anything when you die. You get it when you die. I don't think it's retirement. You can't sell a 30-year-old on retirement. They're not thinking that far ahead. I think it's financial independence. And financial independence is everything. And this is the intersection of gerontology. How do you talk to somebody if you're understanding the aging process, if you're understanding what was brilliantly said by John before? How do you sell? You sell them through financial independent plan. We talked about the generations and the sandwich generation and caregiving issues, and those are some another more intersections of financial gerontology and financial planning. We're going to look at family caregiving. I have a quick story. I have a beach house. And you talk about multi-generational living. Well, in the summer, I'm descended upon by my children and grandchildren. I love it. Although at the end of the day, don't knock on the door. Pop-Up is, watching Gilligan's Island on mute because he's overstimulated all day. You know what I'm saying? So, basically I've been in that family. And of course, this is going to be part of the financial plan for some people to spend time with their family. It always says, oh my God, the great retirement crisis is about to happen. Everybody's going to go destitute. We're all going to be on the street corner begging for money, selling pencils, whatever we do nowadays. No, we're not. We had children, we have grandchildren, we have social networks, we have churches, we have synagogues, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to be fine. And there's starting to come out some academic articles now where if I was a discussant, I wouldn't have any problems where they say, no, we're not in the heat of the next retirement crisis as income. People who are poor will probably always be living on the margin, and people who are wealthy probably aren't going to ever have to worry about a thing. And we do have to plan not to be in a retirement crisis. And that's where the financial services world and the gerontological world will come in. So we talk about the different intersections. Let me just mention a couple more, and then I'll yield to questions. I don't know if do we have, Dana, any questions from the audience in the chat? Or?
Got a couple of questions.
Okay, so I'm going to leave time for that. John, you mentioned, and I don't think another giant intersection between financial planning, financial gerontology is financial fraud. I mean, I would be remiss to say, get a trusted contact. I would be remiss to say you need a trusted contact if you didn't do that. We talk about all the legal issues, whether it be living wills, power of attorney, durable powers of attorney, wills, et cetera, et cetera. And this is another, intersection of financial gerontology and financial planning. Also, one last point, and there's more. I'm skip, go to the next page, go to the next page. One last point is, I believe there's also a road for gerontologists to be bigger, better, and more professional at your craft by learning financial planning. I think that the road works both ways. I think that if you're a gerontologist and if you're studying in this area, not knowing financial planning issues that accrue for your clients might be borderline malpractice. So we need to marry these two fields, and we need to know that this is, extremely important. We need to be ready, as the sometimes called silver tsunami. We need to be ready for this. We need to understand population aging. We need to understand So as financial planners, we need to understand that. And as gerontologists, I think you need to understand the fundamentals of financial planning as well. So with that, John, I don't know where I am time-wise. I can talk for hours. College professor has one skill. You can take the same material and teach it in one class or over the course of a semester. So I have that skill. I have that skill from doing it a long time. John, where are we time-wise? We have questions. Do you want to join up for questions? I think we should get some questions. We have a couple of questions as well. So this is actually yeah. I can repeat the question if you want to give it to me. Okay. I'm going to read the question. Oh, okay. Yeah. How do we marry or translate the language of sociology? I can't, John. Better reading glasses. Gerontology, okay. And a financial planning. How do we marry or translate the languages together? That's a great question. Don't you think that's a great question? How do we do that? John, go ahead. This is a great question. I can't answer it. I'm not smart enough. Go ahead. How do we marry these two worlds? What you guys did in your curriculum, by the way.
I think probably there's many answers. One answer is find a broker, find a marriage broker. Find somebody who knows the place where who will help you with the translation. Okay. Again, and I'll speak to this from my experience with Kenn's book, ebook. I'm not a financial planner, and yet I saw in his book how terribly complex financial services and financial issues are for a layperson. Okay, and I'm certainly glad that there were financial people out there who understood all that. I certainly didn't. But the takeaway for me is there are places where it made sense for me that I saw a gap between advice I was getting, being given, or issues that I needed addressed that were not necessarily being addressed by my own financial advisors, who I've had for many, many, many years. So I think the translation is you have to get the information out there. I think that's one of the reasons why the establishment of an Institute for Financial Gerontology here at the Erickson School, the connection with NAFA and with FSP, with those professionals, is fabulous because the education needs to happen in order for that translation to begin. I, as a non-financial person, I need to get educated as Ken, reasonably says. But that's two-way street. That's how you translate, is that you sit down across the table and you speak your own language. And maybe you need a translator in there in the middle. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can just get by. But I think that's part of the process. It's this education and getting information out. One of the frameworks that I'm starting to see established is what's called financial resilience, right? It's the ability to come back from things that don't work out right, as we often know that happens. How to be there through generations. The resilience of generations is really important. Okay, so there's all these opportunities, and you just need to sit down at the table with each other and learn from each other.
Let me make one practical suggestion. If you're a member of Nathan, you're watching this in the live stream, go back. The journal goes back 20 years or so. Go back and read Neil Cutler. Go back and read John Migliaccio. Go back and read Sandy Timmerman, Jody Ostrowski, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Go back and read those columns. If you did one a day or two a week, you would be so far ahead of the competition would be feeling your elbow right there. You would be throwing an elbow to your competition. You would be doing it. What?
I wrote them once a day.
Did you? You almost did. See, you had 6 deadlines a year, Neil, and it seemed like every other day is a deadline. I know that feeling. Do we have any other questions?
Got a couple more.
Sure. John, you better read it. I'm doing a bad job.
That's it. Regarding generations, can you talk about how we can think about financial gerontology skipping generations? Pop to his guardian, to his grandchildren. That's a good one.
Why do I want to say 529 plans right there? I mean, I definitely would, point that out, but we do see different ways. I was at a retirement planning seminar, John, and I'm outside of Pittsburgh. I'll never forget this. So I'm doing the retirement plan center, State Farm Insurance Company. These are employees, not financial planners. So they're getting, and a woman comes up to me and she said, look, you're a retirement planner. I don't want to hear anything about giving my money to my children. My next segment after the break is going to be on estate plan. So I'm in big trouble. She said, I bathed him. I powdered his bottom. I wiped. She went on. And I sent him to college. He can take care of himself. So for that, in this issue is, what are you doing for your grandchildren, for your great-grandchildren? Are you leaving a legacy beyond money as well? So you can write down a legacy will, which talks about your values, the importance of what you felt to be life changing moments and things like that. I had, my parents are gone. I had the pleasure, not this summer, I just unearthed a letter my father had written about his days in World War II on an LST, which I never knew what it meant. He just said it was a large, slow target. He was in the Navy, he was an ensign in the Navy. But seeing that and then reading it to my grandchildren was an amazing thing. So I do think it's a financial legacy that can skip generations or go forward, or you can set up an endowment at a school like the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, where generations in the future will benefit from what your presence on this earth did.
Yes. This kind of reminds me of the issue of that we're seeing, and I touched on very briefly, of the aging of the financial service profession. And so you talked about training and teaching 22-year-olds. I think there needs to be more of a dive into that generation for financial professionals and help them understand the importance of their perspective. Because ageism works both ways. Don't trust anyone. Actually, the whole phrase of don't trust anyone over 30, when all the folks who were then not 30, when they turned 50, it was don't trust anyone under 30. So it was like, depends on your generation where you are. And so this movement from one generation to the next is an important dynamic that you need to understand if you're going to work with your children or not, and your grandchildren.
Okay. Do we have any more questions, Michael?
I think we have time for one more.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
we could go on for, days.
Yeah, there are others back here in case you're interested.
Ah, this is a good one. Not that they all weren't. Are there policy changes we should be thinking about regarding financial gerontology?
The one thing that you should be well aware of, and it's not new, but it's evolving, is financial elder abuse. Financial planners have to be very well aware of the financial elder abuse. You are on the front lines of stopping people from getting scam cheated. You had written a brilliant article. What was it? Scoundrels and rogues?
Scoundrels, right, yeah.
And
yes,
whatever, I can't remember,
yeah,
it was,
yeah.
we really need to be on the, again, go back to the journal and read that article about helping people who are vulnerable. I mean, you take in the aging process, which is not kind to anybody, and you throw in the fact that they have more money than they ever did in their life, and they are a
Right.
vulnerable
Yeah.
population. And so I do think that the policy issues, and we're doing a
Yeah.
better job
Yeah.
of protecting against elder abuse, but still it's an underreported.
Yeah.
And it's, I think the MetLife Mature Institute had come up with what was the dollar figure.
Well, this was back in the day. We came up, actually did, and this was the tip of the iceberg. This was just the tip of the iceberg. We defined, yes, there is a tip of the iceberg, and this is how big it is. Did not even address how big that iceberg was below, and that was about $3 billion a year. And this is over a decade ago. And there have been other studies since then defining that. And I introduced the issue of that artificial intelligence. We're getting more and more instances where artificial intelligence is being used for these scams and other things. And I did write one column about that when I was standing on a breakfast line at a all-inclusive resort in Mexico, and my phone rang from a number I didn't particularly know, but I answered it anyway. And the first words out of the person's mouth was, "Hello, Grandpa?" I thought this was really, really strange. Number one, how'd they get my number? Number two, I don't have any grandchildren. So where are we going with this? I knew exactly who that person was and what they were trying to do at that point. I did recommend they do something which my physician demonstrated or just, told me was physically impossible before I hung up, just to give them a little bit of a, but it's absolutely true. And the policy that has to go from both sides, I think, Ken. It has to go from policy side on the financial services side, because there is policy now which obstructs information going from financial services organizations to financial professionals in adult protective services. And there are policy things that need to be there from a point of view of how to identify, how to prosecute, how to
Make that
prevent.
mandatory
Right.
reporter, which
Yeah,
is a
exactly.
part
Yeah.
of it. And some states actually do.
Yeah.
The other policy, and I think we'll end on this because I think we're running short, is the Social Security issue. Now, take heart. Years ago, the head of Social Security was on the journal staff. He was somebody who reviewed articles. Bob Myers was his name. He was known by 5 presidents as Mr. Social Security. And I used to have, Bob, Social Security's in trouble. I said, we waited in 1883, we waited till the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day to fix Social Security. It'll be fixed. But policy-wise, it's broken. And Medicare is even more broken, but that's another story for another day. And we're out of time, and that's another 2 hours worth of discussion. Dana?
Wow. All right. So, we really could stay here for another 2 hours. But our crack AV team actually has to go on to another engagement. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I learned a great deal. And I want to tell each of you how happy I am that this was the inaugural. Because when you have an inaugural, it means there's more to come. And that is very, very exciting. Okay, I like suspense. I like surprises. Right. So what we're really planning, you'll hear so those of you who are virtually with us, we will be reaching out to you. It'll either be me or Michael Marcus, our new director of the Center for Community Innovation and Aging, that is charged with developing the Institute for Financial Gerontology.
We're going to be reaching out to you to ask for your help and guidance as we shape the research agenda moving forward for the Institute. We will also be telling you, sharing exciting ideas and information about our spring financial gerontology lecture. And as you've heard, being based on the, again, shoulders of giants, I am really excited that our team is developing for curriculum for this registered financial gerontologist designation that reflects the times of the, where we are in 2024, thinking about all the issues about the future of financial gerontology. So it's my great pleasure to say thank you for being with us, and I look forward to seeing more of you again. Thank you all.